Tonight we're in Exeter and this is Question Time. Good evening and a big welcome to you, whether you're watching, listening on the radio, and of course to our panel, the Conservative former Defence Secretary Liam Fox, the former leader of the Liberal Democrats, Paddy Ashdown, the Labour MP campaigning to leave the European Union, Kate Hoey, the leader of Plaid Cymru, Leanne Wood, and the founder and chairman of the Wetherspoon chain of pubs, Tim Martin. And as we go into this hour of debate, remember, Facebook, Twitter, all at your disposal, or you can text us if you want to take issue with what the panel or the audience are saying. 83981 is the number for texting. Our first question from Louise Haynes, please.
Is it OK for Barack Obama to come to the UK and tell us how to vote in the EU referendum?
Barack Obama, who arrives today. Liam Fox.
Well, the President is entitled to be heard. He's our closest ally in the world. My problem, I think, with this is that what he's talking about for Britain is something America would never accept for itself. You would never have the Americans accepting a court, telling the Supreme Court what to do. You would never accept them being told to have an open border with Mexico. You would never expect Congress to allow someone else to determine how to spend its money. I think that you've always got to be careful when you're getting involved in anyone else's domestic politics. I think if there's a big existential issue like your national security, you've probably got to need to speak out. But I don't like being told that we should accept one thing that the Americans wouldn't. And my message to President Obama would be, can we cope with making our own laws? Can we cope with controlling our own borders? Can we cope with controlling our own money? Yes, we can.
But you,
and what's good enough for America is good enough for us.
But you, in the past, you've lectured America on what you think they should do, haven't you?
No, it's not a question of
but you
lecture.
have. I mean,
and I'm not the head of state.
No, you're not the head of state. I think we know that, yes. So it's all right for you, but not for
Well,
not for
we all have our opinions, but he's the head of state. And to actually come and say to us, you should accept something for the United Kingdom that we would never accept for the United States, I think you should just pause a little bit and think the message that gives us.
OK, Paddy Ashdown.
But that's not what he's saying. He's saying quite specifically, it's up to you to make up your own mind about these things. We'll get onto some of these issues later on. Look, 99 years ago this month, the American president in 1917 took the decision that American troops would be sent to Europe. And they were, by the thousand. And we would probably have lost the First World War had it not been for the intervention of America to save our freedom. And they did it again in the Second World War. And they did it again in the Cold War. And in those three wars, 1.5 million young American soldiers were killed or wounded. What reason is he here? There's 1.5 million reasons. America has in the past protected us, defended us, at every one of the dangerous moments that we have faced. And if it is the President's view, which it is, and it's mine too, that a step we are about to take will introduce instability into Europe at a time which is exceedingly dangerous, he has a right to say that, and he has a right to tell us that this step will endanger the safety of both his country and Europe and ourselves.
But it won't...
Now, hang on a second, Tim. Let me just finish. Now, he does come here as a head of state of the greatest nation on earth and our constant friend in times of the most difficulty over the last 100 years. We should give him a hearing and we should listen.
All right.
And we should treat him with respect. And the one thing we should not do is do what Kate Hoey did the other day, call him a patronising hypocrite. That is bad manners, and it shames all of us. At the very least,
Tim,
he's allowed respect.
All right, Paddy. Tim, I'll come to you, but obviously Kate Hoey ought to be able to answer that first. Kate.
Well, I didn't actually call him a patronising hypocrite.
That's
I said he was hypocritical and he was being patronising. And I would just start... Exactly. Can I... Yeah, So you should read it more carefully. I don't think that President Obama woke up one morning with Michelle and said, we've got to go to London and we've got to tell the people that they're need to stay and vote to stay in the European Union. We know why he's come. He's obviously come, and it's a very useful time to come and have lunch with Her Majesty, and that's great, and I've no objection to him coming to say goodbye. But, of course, we know he was asked by the Prime Minister. David Cameron literally, I believe, not necessarily got down on his knees, but he pleaded with him to come because he needs him, because he knows that the campaign
Do you have a shred of evidence for
has
that?
not
Do you have
been
one
going
tiny
very
bit of
well.
evidence to support
Well, I
that?
know, Paddy, that David Cameron is spending a lot of his time now, instead of looking after the steel industry and other issues and the doctors that we might come on to, and going round the country and going round getting every single international figure he can get to come along and tell the British people. But, you know, the reality in terms of the security issue is ridiculous. The Americans have their own interest. I know they're our greatest neighbour and friend that we want to be working with, but they have their own interest. You know, they tried to stop us defending the Falklands. They tried to stop us when they invaded Grenada, and we, part of the Commonwealth, they didn't come and consult us. So when it's in their interest, because they see us in the European Union as their kind of spokesperson. Now, if we leave, why would we not still be part of being friendly with the United States and still be able to cooperate with them?
All right. Let's hear from you in the front row there.
I wonder whether he's saying what's in America's interest or in our interest.
Leanne Wood, what do you think?
Well, I don't remember there being a big outcry when President Obama intervened in the Scottish referendum debate. I think many Tories welcomed his intervention then, telling Scots that Scotland would be better off as part of the United Kingdom. So either it's okay for the President of the United States to intervene on matters in the UK, or it's not. You can't pick and choose depending on the referendum. But I would say, from a Welsh perspective, we've got our elections to the National Assembly in just 2 weeks' time, and this debate has completely dominated politics for a number of weeks now. And the danger for us is that the very important issues, the fact that we've had 17 years of a Labour-led government, they are the establishment in Wales.
Hang on, we're not doing a party political for Plaid Cymru here tonight. We know the elections are coming up in 2 weeks' time. The question was, is it OK for Barack Obama to come and say what he did?
Well, if it was OK for him to intervene in the Scottish referendum campaign, it has to be OK for him to intervene in this one as well.
The man up there in pale blue, up there in the gallery. Yes.
To link this back, as Paddy did, to a security issue, the reason the Americans can have an opinion on things, surely security in Europe has been a NATO programme, and we joined the single market, the political project that is Europe in the 70s. So it's nothing to do with the wars and what's happened since the wars.
Tim Martin. We're going to go on. Tim.
I agree with what you've said about NATO. If Barack Obama wants to speak out, or Prince Charles wants to speak out, you can't stop him. I think it's slightly repugnant the way it does seem to be the great and the good. Even the New Zealand Prime Minister has been asked to comment on the European Union. So there is quite a lot of interference. I utterly disagree with Paddy's analysis of the situation. What has made America great, the top military power, a fantastically powerful economy, perhaps the greatest country in the world, is the fact that it's a democracy, and that democracy is enshrined in their constitution. And if you look around the world now, it's democratic countries which are the most prosperous, and democratic countries which have the most freedom, and America's a shining example of that. The problem with Europe is that it is removing democracy, and that's the issue.
OK, well, we'll come. No, we were dealing with Barack Obama's visit. We've got a question on Europe coming up right now, so let's go to that, and we'll just move on. It's from Robin Horn, please. Robin Horn.
Are the Treasury right to use scare tactics in the forthcoming referendum?
This was the latest announcement by the Treasury saying that, on average, by 2030, households would have to pay a further, or would lose £4,300 a year. Paddy, I'll come to you, but first I do want to ask you just one question which has been niggling at me. When we saw you and Neil Kinnock and David Cameron on those telephones this week, who were you actually talking to?
We were talking to help us on the Remain campaign, the Britain campaign.
Oh, you weren't cold calling people?
No, but we were ringing them to say thank them for their...
I thought you were ringing... This is Paddy Ashdown, former leader of the Liberal Democrats.
Wait. You'll get there, David, if you allow me to finish the story. So I'm roaring with laughter, and the reason I'm roaring with laughter is because I've just discovered 3 Lib Dems in a row. And the third one says, can I speak to the Prime Minister? I want to persuade him to vote Lib Dem. So I handed it to the Prime Minister. All of us will do our cold calling later on. So the question was, look, I think the Treasury was right. I think this is well-founded. The Financial Times said so too. But look, I'm going to concede that both sides here will no doubt massage the arguments in favour, and the figures a bit. They always do it, and we're probably doing it now. So I'm going to invite you not to listen to the Treasury.
Really?
Well, wait, David, you must let me finish.
No, I'm interested in what you're saying.
I want you to listen instead to the independent, accepted, respected international bodies who have warned us of the dangers and costs to ourselves and the global economy and the European economy of doing the step that will take us out of Europe. And the Remain campaign, the Out campaign, like Liam, has said, no, they're wrong. Every time one comes up, wrong. They don't explain why they're wrong, they just say they're wrong, as though saying it made it so. So, the IMF, which said that was wrong, the OECD, which said that was wrong, the World Trade Organization, which said that was wrong, the G7 finance ministers, which said that was wrong, the Bank of England governor was wrong, everybody's wrong except for them.
Rubbish.
No,
all right.
But that's
okay,
so
make the point.
Wait.
Well, I can't keep waiting, Paddy.
Forgive me. I'm going to set a challenge, which might be interesting.
Liam can take it up.
Liam will take it up. Can they offer the name of a single, independent, respected, international institution that does not believe that leaving the European Union will be exceedingly damaging to us and to the world economy? Just as we're coming out of recession, we're about to be plunged back in it. That's what they say. Are they wrong?
Liam Fox.
Well, on the question on the Treasury, well, let's be very frank and honest. All politicians will use negative campaigning at some point if it suits them. But if you're going to do it, at least you've got to be decent about doing it. And the thing about the Treasury report this week was it was cringingly inept. I was embarrassed that it came out of a Treasury which I've helped get elected. And I think Gordon Brown would have blushed at the manipulation of data that was in this particular report. Now, first of all, since Paddy wants an explanation, they invented this statistic, GDP per household. It's never used anywhere else in government. It's never used in the budget, never used anywhere else. According to this, we have a GDP per household of £68,000. I don't know how many people recognise that figure.
2030, this is they're talking about.
This is,
and won't recognise it now, since 2016.
Yes, and what they said was, although the economy would continue to grow, whether we were inside or outside the European Union, they believed it would grow slightly more slowly if we were outside the European Union. And then they said, if you make the assumption that we have 3 million migrants coming in, you end up with this number of 4,300. Now, in order for George... Hang on a second. In order for George Osborne to be right, we have to have no trade deals outside the European Union, have 3 million migrants, which, of course, blows apart the Conservative election pledges, and they have got to be right in their predictions for 60 consecutive quarters. And remember, today, we got the number that we didn't get the number correct from our prediction in October last year. So this seems to be a lot for us to swallow. And frankly, it was an incredible assessment.
Can you pick up, Don? Can you, or maybe Kate can, pick up on the point Paddy made, which is there are a whole host of these reports, and the Institute for Fiscal Studies says they're all broadly in the same direction. Kate was asked whether she could name one reputable study.
I've now got one from the
a reputable institution. What a name of an individual economist.
Let's just look at the CBI to start with. The CBI actually commissioned the PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, they did a report which said, yes, of course, when we leave immediately, there will be some uncertainty, but as the months go on, growth will grow. And it is very, very clear that there are other, independent reports, Capital Economics, the Tosca Fund. I don't know the details of all these because, you see, fundamentally to me, this is, yes, the economics is very important and we're going to get all these different views and there will be scare stories. But for me, the most important thing about why I want people to leave is because I do genuinely believe that we have lost control of our borders and our immigration system, but more importantly, we are not an independent country anymore. We are not. And that is, to me, the most important thing.
Okay. Hold on. I'll go to members of the audience. The man in the check shirt there, and then I'll come over here. Yes.
I did some maths on the back of an envelope as well. I should say I'm an economist and a financial advisor. And I took the 10 billion of net savings that we would make if we left Europe, and I multiplied those by 14, which is the number of years, obviously, up to 2030. I then used the economic credit multiplier because, of course, you have the benefit of spending that 10 billion, the taxes raised on it, some economic growth and so on. And do you know the figure I came up with? The figure I came up with was 1.5 trillion, which means that if we leave the European Union, we'll be able to fund and repay the national debt by the time 2030 comes.
I think you should be in the Treasury. You should be in the Treasury. He should be in the Treasury.
Shall I explain why that's...
Kate Hoey thinks you should be in the Treasury.
I did try, I should say.
Shall I try?
Paddy, yes, just briefly, if you would.
First of all, Kate, you were asked to name one of the international accredited institutions.
No, I wasn't
there
tonight.
are many, and you have named none of them so far. So we'll be interested to see that challenge lies on the table.
They all got it wrong in the Euro, Paddy.
Oh,
you know that.
So hang on a second.
As did you, Paddy.
Well, hang on a second. OK, fine, I accept. They could all be wrong. These guys could be right. Are you going to bet the whole country on that possibility?
Yes.
Well, fine. That is fine. If you are going to bet the whole country on a pious hope rather than serious studies from the international institutions that are respected around the world, then you're right to vote Brexit.
All right.
Now, can I answer the question?
Hang on a second. No, the man over there, Inspector.
Well, I was going to try and answer it, if
you
I
can
could.
come back. No, but you...
Does Liam Fox not feel embarrassed at working for a government that he can't support? I mean, they're so inept. He's just said so.
That the government is so inept?
Yes.
No, I said the report was inept. I didn't say the government was inept. I think that
the Chancellor was inept,
we've got different views, and we're not all going to be identikit politicians. Goodness, the public don't want that. But what I would say to Paddy is, no.
You said
well, I told
the
you,
Chancellor
I gave
was
you the answer. I didn't say the government was inept. I thought the report was inept.
You said the Chancellor was inept,
I said the report was inept.
You didn't say Osborne was inept?
No, I didn't say. I said the report was inept. I
said
it was cringing, which is
but
in fact what it was.
It doesn't embarrass you.
And to go back to Paddy's point on the IMF.
Never mind, Paddy.
All of them, Liam. Every single one. Not just the IMF. The IMF, the OECD, the London School of Economics, the Governor of the Bank of England, all of them. And many more I could name.
And they all said you should join the euro.
Absolutely.
The Bank of England said it would be good for the UK economy to join the euro. Thank God we didn't listen to that.
All right, Paddy, I want to go round the table. I'll come back to you, but I'm going to go to the woman up there in the second row from the back there.
How do you think the government would be able to guarantee income for farmers if we left the European Union? They get so much of their income, 55% of their income in 2015 came from being linked with the European Union and direct payments. How would the government be able to guarantee that?
Leanne Wood, you answer that, because you've got farmers in Wales who benefit from this.
Yes, and I'm really glad you raised that question, because in Wales we have many farmers scratching a living on hillsides, trying very hard to make those businesses a success, and I'm very concerned about what will happen to those, because I have no faith in Westminster, whoever is in government, to redistribute that wealth in a fair way, because they don't have a good record on that. But
so you trust the European...
Well, they are redistributing wealth now.
You trust them better than Westminster?
Well, they are doing it now.
Yes.
There is an element of redistribution.
And you think that a Westminster government would pull back on that?
Well,
if Brexit came
my
about?
party has been campaigning for years for parity for Wales with Scotland, for example, and we've had no success in terms of sorting out our financial situation. But can I just respond to this point about information and figures and the way in which this information is put up? People are desperate for accurate information, for facts. This is a difficult decision, and people want to make an informed decision based on the correct information. And the way that figures are being bandied about, economic forecasts way into the future, are impossible to predict. And today, it's not just the one side, it's the Brexit supporters as well. We had the head of the Office for National Statistics has questioned this figure that's being used of £350 million is costing us every week to remain as a member of the EU. So the figures are questioned on both sides, and I think what people want now, in order to make that informed choice on this very important question, is to have facts.
The problem with facts, Leanne, is that facts can be interpreted differently. If I hold up this glass of water, in my right hand it's half full. If I move it to my left hand, it's half empty. You know, there is a facts, but just on the farming aspect, 40% of the money we give into the EU goes to subsidising farmers all over the EU. We're subsidising French farmers far, far more than our farmers are getting. Before we joined the common market, farmers got subsidy. Why would they not?
I'm going to bring in Tim Martin and I'll come back to you, Paddy.
Tim. The Farming and Agricultural Minister, George Eustice, has said that the farming community will continue to be supported to the same level it is within the EU. There is no real EU money. We send money out to the EU and it comes back to support farmers with strings attached. It's not a very efficient way.
Why did the NFU this week vote to remain then, if that's so?
Well,
I mean, they represent the farmers.
Maybe they don't believe George Eustice, but I do.
OK. Paddy Ashdown. And then I come to more members of our panel. Yes, you want to come in? All right, Liam.
I mean, the problem with farming is not just will they get that money withdrawn. By the way, in terms of facts, Leanne is right. The 350 million they've been talking about a week, actually that was checked, and on a report announced today by Sir Andrew Dilnot in the UK Statistical Agency, whose job it is to provide statistics are accurate, says that 350 million is totally inaccurate and misleading. The actual figure that we give to Europe after taking account of the rebates that come back is about 7.8 billion. That's about 30p per person per day in Britain. Now, I could just like to address our economist friend over here. Let's take that as 7 or 8 billion that we then pay into the European Union. If we leave the European Union, the likelihood, you can already see the pound dropping. You're already beginning to see Britain's credit rating being held in question by Standard & Poor. If it is the case, as I think is likely, that an exit from the European Union leads to 1% increase in interest rates on our mountain of debt, that 7 billion is swallowed up the day after, many, many times over. And that's leaving aside the extra cost of 23 billion. I mean, that leaves aside the extra cost of 23 billion in tariffs that is going to be loaded on the cost of British goods, and 25% extra on agricultural goods, by the way, which will be paid for not by your money, but in lost jobs and broken businesses. This doesn't sound to me like a good deal.
You did say we shouldn't take too much account of these figures that are being bandied about.
Well, excuse me, if it is the National Statistical Agency designed to be able to ensure that figures are correct, who criticise the 350 million, I think the audience should know that.
In terms of farming, to get back to the question, I think the factor that will determine whether we get a fair deal or not is what's in our mutual interest. And we actually import, the figure this year is £19.4 billion worth of agricultural goods from Europe, more than we sell to them. It's actually in their interests, even more than ours, to get a free trade agreement, including on agricultural goods. Right. And the NFU report actually said that if we assume that we have a free trade deal and we continue the subsidies at the level we have now, and I don't know any party that's proposing anything else, then actually all agricultural sectors will benefit. And I don't think it does any good to scare people that the benefits that they get at the moment will be less if we're a free country than we get from the munificence of the European
Let
Union.
me hear from a number of members of the audience. You, sir, in the blue suit there. You, sir.
Paddy, one of the things you asked Kate about earlier was about evidence, and you're just bandying figures around almost willy-nilly, and you're also referring to institutions that didn't predict the last recession and certainly didn't predict how good and how quick the recovery would be.
All right.
So I think that's,
Paddy,
it's not good enough.
You with the spectacles there in front of him. Yes. You had your hand up, I think. Yeah.
In the short term, we see that maybe there'll be a struggle before we can actually negotiate all of these free trade deals. Maybe in the long run, you can make the case that it's better to exit, but in the short term, there'd be significant pain.
OK, I want to hear from more members of the audience. Let's just get a feel. You, sir, up there. Yes.
I wonder if at the end of the day, the figures are going to be what people to make their decision around. It's very difficult to feel that you can believe any particular set of figures so much that you can rely on them. I believe people will vote on how they feel about the EU and nothing else.
OK. And you, sir? Yes.
The point I'd like to make is that it is all a mess. But I have more confidence that we can sort out our own mess than that mess could be sorted out in Brussels.
Yeah. Okay. The reality is this whole debate is really, and I know Paddy doesn't like me using this word, but it is the establishment who are lining up and uniting against ordinary people who want to have a say for the first time in 40 years over who is running their country.
If it is the establishment, how come that you're one of only 7 Labour MPs?
No, 12.
Oh, 12 now?
12, yeah.
Great. Only 12 Labour MPs going for Brexit. Is the Labour Party the establishment? Is Jeremy Corbyn the establishment?
Well, of course, Jeremy's position on the EU is very interesting because, of course, Jeremy was in every single lobby with myself and others right through the last 20 years. But Jeremy is now leader of the party. He wants to keep the party together. He doesn't want to be seeing the divisions that perhaps there are in the Conservatives.
And he doesn't want to be on the same side as UKIP,
he actually has a very different view, which I support, of what, if we had to stay in the EU, of how I would like to see it changing. I just don't believe it will ever reform, and therefore there is no point in staying in.
OK, I'll take a couple more points, and then we'll go on to another question, so we're halfway through the programme. You, madam, up there.
Why does everything have to be about the bottom line?
Yeah.
Why do we not have some vision here, some leadership? Why are we retreating into petty nationalism? Why do we not want to work with our European friends and neighbours to reform a deeply flawed institution, but to make it better?
I think it's very important to understand that the Europeans are our friends, and what's important for them is important for us. And it's been shown to be the greatest protection against autocrats and war is that they regain control of their own democracy. And that's what will protect us in the future. So it isn't being a little Britain to want to have democracy. It's slowly being eroded, and that's very dangerous.
Is it really a friendly gesture?
OK, no, you come back. Yes, go on. No, let her say. Let her come back, and then Paddy, you come in.
Is it really a friendly gesture to throw your toys out of the pram and say you're not going to play anymore because not all the rules suit you?
No one's doing that.
No, we're not doing that. She is, of course, entirely right. The great British tradition is not to shelter behind our island walls and shout insults at foreigners, is to get engaged. But you are entirely right in also saying this is not just about economics. You know, forgive me, I've done quite a lot about peace in my time, including fighting for it. Liam said it was due to NATO that we were at peace. Well, every single one of our NATO allies, there is no exception, is saying, please do not leave Europe. NATO will be weaker in consequence. Every single one of our European allies is saying the same thing. Every single one of our Commonwealth allies is doing the same thing. Only one man in our neighbourhood wants us to leave and begin to break up the European Union, and you know his name. It's Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin, whose strategy for the last 30 years has been to divide Europe, to use energy, to use tanks to capture European territory. If you move now to break up the European Union, then I can tell you the one person who will cheer is not a single one of our allies or a single one of our friends, but the Russian leader. Vote Brexit.
All right.
It's what Putin wants you to do.
No, it's not. That is true. All right.
That is true.
Liam Fox is a former Defence Secretary. What do you make of what Paddy's just said?
Oh, I think it's nonsensical. You know,
Paddy, allow him to answer the question. Allow him, please.
You know, we were in the EU when he annexed Crimea. We were in the EU when he invaded Georgia. It didn't really seem to stop him or dissuade him from those actions. And I think that's a ridiculous argument. I want to take up the point that this gentleman made.
Which gentleman?
The gentleman right at the back here, right. With the grey hair, if you don't mind me saying that. I do agree. I think this is much more than just about money. Yeah. And for me, and for many people, this is about being a self-governing democracy, able to make our own laws, control our borders, and control our own money, and to escape from the financial quicksand of the euro. Because the more that the euro drags down the European economy, and I'm not sure that people necessarily understand this, and the more our economy is successful, the bigger our contribution to the European Union gets. We end up funding a project that we stayed out of because we correctly predicted it would fail.
David, can I ask Liam one question? A very simple question to which there is a simple answer. Name me one NATO leader of one of our partners in NATO who agrees that Brexit is a good idea for our common security. Just one.
And many of them agree that democracy. And I'll tell you why. Many of them are in the European Union because we give them free British money. Of course they're going to want us to stay. And want us to stay as well.
So the answer is you can't name one of our friends who agrees with you. That's the answer.
That's not the answer.
We've got to move on. Do you want to have a last word, madam?
Yeah,
no, madam. You.
I just wanted to say, I don't remember a time that we weren't part of the common market. And I do want more information. Yes, facts and figures can be interpreted in different ways. But I want to know what's going to happen. And I don't know what's going to happen if we come out. And I am on the fence. I know which side I would prefer. But I'm still really torn. And I'm just getting more and more bombarded with information. And facts and figures are bombarded. Yes, we're better off financially. No, we won't be better off financially. What's going to happen to us?
Does the kind of discussion we've had here over the last half hour... This is a dangerous question to ask. Does it help you? Does it help you make up your mind, or does it make it worse?
Unfortunately, it doesn't. I mean, getting facts and figures. Unfortunately, the gentleman in front of me is probably very clever, and his economics and his maths are probably very, very good. But he said he wrote it on the back of an envelope. We just don't know what's going to happen to this country, and that's what concerns me.
So how would you? So this is interesting. So how will you make up your mind if you've got this balance and you're bombarded with all this?
I'm concerned about immigration. I'm concerned about people in the country, but I also want this country to grow. I want money. I want investment. I want jobs for the people in this area. But I'm also aware I live in a country in an area where farmers need support. We do get money from the EU, but also I know it's our money, and I know we pay a lot in taxes, and I know we have laws, but I'm very torn.
Surely to look at Australia, New Zealand, Canada, the United States, Singapore, countries which are independent democracies.
Yeah, but they're very different to us. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, just the last thing. When are you going to make up your mind? As you go into the polling booth?
I'm about 60-40. My husband is very, very opposite, and we do debate things, and we're very different. But I am very torn.
Is that your husband sitting next to you?
No.
He's very nice, though. He's at home. OK, thank you very much. Well all I can say is keep watching. And we're going to be in Hull next week if you want to come there and listen to the argument there, and the Manchester the week after that. I just say that because if you want to make a note of it, there's the website address and our telephone number. But let's move on, because we'll discuss the EU week after week, I've no doubt, until the 23rd. So let's take this question from Lisa Kelman, please, who's a medical student, I think. Lisa.
What should Jeremy Hunt do to avoid an all-out strike by junior doctors?
Shall we go on to the next question? Kate Hoey.
Well, I think that Jeremy Hunt is not facing up to the reality that next week there is a really serious situation going to be happening with the all-out strike that's going to take place. And I believe now that the time is for the Prime Minister, as I said earlier, he's spending an awful lot of time on the whole EU business, but actually this is an immediate crisis, and I believe that he now, the Prime Minister, should be taking control of this, that he should be insisting that Jeremy Hunt actually is, personally, I would move him and get a new Secretary of State. I think that would be a great addition to making things work, because there is no doubt about it, and I know from my own doctors and my own constituency at Thomas's, how little respect now they have for the Secretary of State for Health. And if you have that lack of respect, how can you even start to begin to negotiate? So I would say to the Prime Minister, your responsibility, get everybody round the table in Downing Street, even if we have to have tea and biscuits or whatever that they used to do, and realise that this is something that is not going to be solved by Jeremy Hunt.
Okay.
One thing that doesn't make any sense to me is how the BMA can say that the new junior doctors' contracts are unsafe and they're going to put patients at risk and possibly increase death rates or whatever, but then the BMA can organise a strike next week or the week after where emergency cover isn't going to be covered, if that makes sense. Yeah. I just don't. Surely that's going to be just as dangerous as the new. If the new contract is dangerous, it's going to, it's sort of. I can't think of the word.
Equal danger.
Yeah.
Liam Fox, you were a doctor. What do you make of it?
He still is. Yeah, and someone who, as a junior doctor in the NHS, worked many more hours than junior doctors work today. I'm glad that we got away from where we were then. I can remember when I worked in obstetrics doing what was called a 1 and 2. You had to work the day, the next day and the next night, the day, the next day, the next night. And that was ridiculous. That was absolutely dangerous. And one of the good things about the contract is the reduction in total hours doctors are allowed to work from 91 hours a week, which still is a great number of hours, down to 72.
Is that the EU Working Time Directive?
No, this is the government's new contract, and I think that, that's a positive. I have a problem with doctors actually going on strike, and the General Medical Council have said it may well lead to doctors being potentially struck off if patients were to die as a result of their actions. I think in a country, this is my personal view, it's not the government's view, but I think if we don't allow the police to strike and we don't allow the armed forces to strike, there's quite a strong argument to say we shouldn't allow doctors to strike and in return we cut them a special deal. What should the Secretary of State do? I think he needs to keep talking. 90% of this contract is already agreed. I think it is wrong for the doctors to go on strike. But there's a question here about the 7 days. What are we trying to achieve? Is it better 7 days emergency cover, or are we trying to get to a full 7-day service with elective surgery and all those services running? Because if that's what we want, it's more than just doctors. Because if you want to run a full service, you've got to have the haematologists and the radiographers and the dietitians all in at the same time.
Well, the shout was, you tell us, because you support the government on this. You tell us.
Well, I would like us to get to that full 7-day service, because I think patients don't get ill according to what day of the week it is.
But that needs more money, Liam.
But if we're going to do that, I think that's right. I think in the long term it does require more money. It requires a whole change in how we go about organising our healthcare. And I think everyone should take a deep breath now. They need to get back into those talks, and we need to recognise the one thing that seems to be left out of this, that the most important people in the health service are not the doctors, not anyone else, it's the patients, and the quality of the healthcare that the patients are getting when the patients want it and at a level of quality they deserve to get.
All right. You sir, with the moustache there. Easily identifiable, yes.
Yeah, I'd like to make
we'll come to Lisa in a moment.
An observation.
Yeah.
David Cameron used as one of his sound bites to get elected was there'll be no top-down restructure of the NHS, and I'll cut the deficit, not the NHS. Now, they've totally gone against that, and in terms of the doctors going on strike, I served in the fire service, I've been on strike, we didn't want to do it, it was a horrible place to be, and I think they're being forced to this situation. And there is a 7-day NHS at the moment, and we've had it for many years, and it was set up... It was set up in the time of greatest austerity and has served this country well. Now, nothing is more valuable than health.
Yeah, but hold on. Let's come to the point. What do you think Jeremy Hunt should do now?
Resign.
Resign, OK.
Resign now.
Tim Martin.
I think the issue of the health service in Britain suffers mostly because it's a sacred cow. And we don't, unlike car manufacturing, many other types of things, we don't much ever compare how it works in France, how it works in New Zealand, how it works in Australia, where I think in many ways they've got superior systems. It's very, very difficult working in the NHS from the people I speak to. It is a top-down run structure, and I think it needs fundamental reform, and the debate which Liam Fox has said, that if you want to have a health service, and there is really, for most people, nowhere else to go, I don't think you can go on strike, because it is Hobson's choice.
So what should Hunt do, the Secretary of State do?
I think, running my business, I would never, ever impose a new contract on our managers without their agreement first, because it's too confrontational. If you can't get them to agree it, you can't do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Leanne Wood.
Well, in answer to the question, he should talk to them and he should show them some respect. We've got a big problem in the NHS in terms of recruiting doctors. In Wales, we've got fewer doctors per head of the population than any other country within the EU. And in fact, there's only 3 other countries, in the UK, and there are only 3 countries in the EU that have fewer doctors per head of the population than we do. We're not having a doctors' strike in Wales or in Scotland. We take a different approach in Wales and Scotland. So what I would say to any doctors who are feeling disrespected and unloved by your government, come to Wales.
Recruiting sergeant. Let's go to Lisa Kelman, who asked the question. What do you think of what you've heard so far?
I think Hunt should apologise and say, sorry, I misled the public and caused the Hunt effect. I'm sorry that I've conflated an uncosted manifesto with punishing junior doctors. I'm sorry I lied just this week saying that 500 people have already signed this contract. No, they haven't. That's what he needs to do.
Paddy Ashdown?
Tim, I so agree with what you said at the end there. You know, that if you are going to be a leader, a manager, you really have to bring people with you. I didn't agree with you what you said earlier on. I think we've got the best health.
No need to raise our differences.
I actually think we've got the best health service in the world. And by the way, one of the very cheapest. I don't think Australia's better. And I've spent a lot of time in Australia. My family is there. So what should happen now? Look, I think this has now become a sort of macho conflict. You can't back down on both sides. And sensible solutions are being evaded. So I think it is time, the gentleman at the back said resign, and I think that has most of our support, but I think it is time for the Prime Minister to say it is clear that Jeremy Hunt cannot resolve this problem sensibly, and therefore it probably is time for him to stand aside. On the other hand, I do say to junior doctors, you have, I think, got the public on your side. I don't say, like him, that you shouldn't be taking industrial action. You've got the public on your side. You're winning this. Be careful about raising the stakes. I see no reason to do that whatsoever. Maintain the pressure as it is. Keep the public on your side. If you now move up a notch on this, and there is some devastating consequence of a tragedy, you're going to find that that crucial public support, which you need to win this, is going to be lost. Okay. So my advice is, Mr. Hunt goes, and if I was a junior doctor, I'd maintain the pressure where it is. I wouldn't ratchet it up.
Okay. Yes.
Mr. Ashdown, you've just stated that the NHS was brilliant, which it is, and it's the cheapest. I'm afraid that's nothing to be proud of. Britain is the 5th wealthiest country in the planet, and it does not get the funding it deserves. France, Germany, Holland have more funding and more doctors per head per capita. We are in crisis. And the doctors are saying this as well. And we don't work 7 days a week, full throttle, and that's what we've got to do to accommodate the number of people in this country now. I'm a governor at the RD&E. kind of know what I'm talking about a bit.
And what do you think?
Very fair admonishment.
What do you think Jeremy
Hunt
should do?
The best value for money is what I should have said, not the cheapest.
Thank
what
you.
Do you think Jeremy Hunt should do?
I'm not in the position to get... I don't think doctors are creatures that are really political, except for you, Mr Fox, probably. And I think if they are saying something, we've got to listen. They're an intelligent bunch of people who are dedicated to their jobs.
All right.
I think we should be listening.
One more last point from the woman up there. And back.
Liam Fox asked us to put patients first and ask them what they would want. I'm a junior doctor and I have been for 5 years, and I know from picketing and also opinion polls show that Paddy's right, the public are on our side, they understand. If we had a referendum on this tomorrow, England would vote no to imposition of this contract. Consultants would vote no, the Royal Colleges vote no, patients would vote no. The NHS belongs to all of us, not Jeremy Hunt.
Sorry, let me get a microphone to you. Just say what you were saying.
Sorry, it's
Go
absolute
on.
rubbish.
What's rubbish about what
I
she
used
said?
to work in A&E, and before you do extra hours, you opt in. Right, with any job now, you opt in. There's a scheme, you either opt in or out. They do 79 hours because they push at the weekends to get more money. No. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's true. It's because they want overtime. They want overtime. Nobody can force anybody to do over the 50 hours a week. They choose to physically do it. They put the patients at risk themselves. I'm sorry. It's all about money, and it is wrong. Anybody who goes AWOL and doesn't turn up for a shift when they go on strike should be sacked. If you was in the military, you get arrested for going AWOL. The NHS don't want them going off work. They are technically going AWOL. They are not turning up for their shifts, making people anxious by cancelling appointments. It's their choice. I'm sorry, anybody else in any other job would be sacked for doing that.
Liam Fox,
Shame on them.
What do you make of her point? No, you must answer her point if you would.
My mother's life. My mother, 21 years ago, has worked in this hospital for 21 years in this town. My mother had cancer, was saved by the hospital in this very town. And people like Hunt and people like you sat there, Fox, like, you're a traitor to your profession. You stand behind. You're a front to medicine. You stand there proudly saying, I think Jeremy Hunt's got it all right here. The guy was he was an editor on a book calling for, we need a private NHS, we need to move to the funding. It's bloody suicide. It's the best thing about this country. You said it's a bit sacred cow. Yeah, you know what it is. Because whatever happens to me in any part of this country, I can go to a hospital and you can say as you want, it's a Sunday, so you're definitely going to die. All right. You ought to be ashamed, and I really hope you are.
Liam Fox, you've been attacked there, and you've had in the centre there told that the doctor... all right, and the doctors are just being greedy and they don't have to do these hours anyway. Do you want to answer both those points?
I don't think the doctors are just being greedy. I think there is a real problem moving from the system we had to a new one, and the fact that we're going from what was a Saturday working was regarded as totally different in terms of its structure of pay. Now between 7 and 5 on a Saturday is regarded as part of the working week. There are bonuses if you have to work more than 1 and 4. But I wanted to take up something Leanne said, because politicians are very keen to say we must have more doctors. You don't just put it in the mixer and they turn out doctors. You have to attract people into medicine. And if we want to attract young people into medicine, we've got to give them very, very clear rewards and to understand why they do it. It's not a job, it's a vocation. And sometimes we forget that, and we've got a system that, in my view, is still too target-orientated, too bureaucratic, and the only basis on which it's ethical to treat patients is the clinical need of the patients. And we've got to get back to a medical system that's much more responsive to that basic ethos of medicine, and stop worrying about throughputs and waiting times and worry about the quality of the output for the patient, because it's the quality of the care for the patient that brings people into medicine in the first place. And if all these other targets for waiting times and so on are put ahead of those things, that is a diminished vocational reward for doctors.
Right.
Unless people feel that they're being valued for those reasons, people will not get...
Because the hours are too long, you're not going to attract doctors.
They were longer hours when I did it, Leanne, and we still came in to the NHS.
But people want to work in an attractive organisation, and it's not attractive at the moment. People are off too long, sick with stress. these are the kinds of issues that have to be addressed if we want to attract good quality doctors into the health service. And we can do it because New Zealand have done it by incentivising doctors to stay in the country after they've qualified by having their tuition fees paid off. So there are ways you can make being a doctor here much more attractive than it is at present.
We have under 10 minutes left, and I want to take one more question before we come to the end of the programme. It's from Leslie Gillard. Happens to be a student nurse. That's not an NHS question, but Leslie, let's have your question.
As we have a minimum wage, should we introduce a maximum wage?
OK, this week the minimum wage went up to $7.20 an hour this week, and what perhaps on your mind is Bob Dudley of BP getting a £14 million pay package. Tim Martin, you're not short of a bob or two.
Thank you for pointing that out, David. It's a tricky one. I think that people are very fed up with the enormous amounts that are being earned by PLC companies. That goes without saying. You're grappling with the great difficulty of wanting to attract the best businesses and the biggest businesses to Britain at the same time as finding it repugnant that the very biggest business just about is paying 14 million quid a year. And I don't actually know the answer to that. But they've got sort of remuneration committees and so on. The boards of directors are overseen by non-executive directors who are supposed to control this. But the problem is the non-executive directors themselves are answering to people who are paid even more than the guys on the board in many respects. So it's a tricky one. I think you're going to have to put up with some pretty high pay to attract the biggest companies. And if the biggest companies come here, we get a lot of tax, a lot of money from them. So you sort of have to hold your nose and put up with it.
Yeah, what about the role of the shareholders? Because nearly 60% of the shareholders voted against this, and the chairman of the company said, yes, we hear what you say, but we'll, in effect, make our own decision.
I think that is there are these votes going around, but they haven't really been effective, and mostly...
But, I mean, shareholders, I thought, owned the company. I thought it was a point of capitalism.
I mean, this is... Forgive me, he honestly, listen, I gather, by the way, you're against the living wage. You don't want to see the living wage.
The living wage was introduced by Wetherspoon, in effect, a year before anyone else. We pay 40% of our profits to people who work in our pubs, which is more than anyone else. I'll answer your question, Paddy, because you said it 3 times.
So I'd just like an answer. I'd like an answer.
Yeah. If you would not interrupt me so much, I'll give you one. What we have done, what I feel is it's OK for Wetherspoon to pay a certain amount. I don't think it's going to work in Ashington or Carmarthen or a lot of places where the income levels are very low. If you pitch a very high living wage in order to get elected. This wasn't thought out by the pay commission that the previous coalition had, which I thought was very good. This came from George and David after a couple of pints at Chequers, saying, how can we get George elected the next time? He doesn't believe in living wages.
Well, all right. OK, Leanne Wood. Leanne Wood, you can't have a minimum wage in Carmarthen.
Well,
it's too high.
I just remember those arguments being put when the minimum wage was being debated back in the 1990s.
You don't want it to be too high.
Well, the argument was that, you know, people would be laid off, businesses would close down, and it just didn't happen. I think
it was done scientifically, Leanne, by the Low Pay Commission, not by George and someone else having a couple of pints.
I think the question was about the maximum wage, and I think the idea of a maximum wage is a really good one, because then you could avoid the situation that we've seen arising in recent years where the top executives of organisations are paying themselves big pay rises, where those at the lowest paid end of the organisation have had to have either pay freezes or pay cuts. So if you had a maximum wage and you pinned your lowest paid workers to your highest paid workers, then the highest paid workers would think very carefully about how much they give themselves a pay rise, because then they would have to bring everybody else up at the bottom as well. So yes, from me, yes to the maximum wage.
OK, you, sir.
I think instead of a maximum wage, I think it would be better if we made the people earning those maximum wages pay their proper taxes, which, as you can see, hasn't been happening.
Yeah. Good point. Yes, you sir up there.
I'm a business bank manager for small local businesses in Exeter, and it's not the companies the size of Tim's that have got a problem. It's the small owner-managed businesses who are having to put up their wages week in, week out, under pressure from their staff. That's who I'm worried about, not the big businesses.
Because of the minimum wage or because of...
Because of the minimum wage, and all their staff expect step-ups as well. And it's the business owners who are taking less money home and earning less profit, because it's all going in wages now.
Liam Fox, do you answer him?
Well, to answer the previous point, before that, the chap who raised about the taxes, in fact, the richest 1% now in the United Kingdom pay 28% of all income tax, which is the highest it's been in decades.
Can you answer him? Because we've only got a moment or two left.
I don't agree with a maximum wage. I'm very sympathetic to these small businesses because they are the ones who actually provide more employment in the country than anything else. I'm all for people making a profit. And I'm all for people making a lot of money if that's what they work hard for. People who set up a small business, who grow it, who sacrifice, who don't have their holidays so that they can get their business going.
You're answering his point. His point is the minimum wage means all other wages are going up. That's what he's saying.
That is the point that's already been made. It's where you set that minimum wage. I'm all for the fact that we have a system that there's a floor that no one should fall below. But I would have a problem with setting a maximum wage because I think those who work hard ought to benefit from it. What I have a big problem with is the crony capitalism where bankers get paid huge bonuses when the bank's actually losing money. It's all very well getting a bonus. It's all very well getting a bonus and getting profit and getting income when you're generating wealth, but you should not be getting the same rewards when you're actually consuming wealth.
So empower shareholders. That's what you have to do.
We have 60 seconds, Paddy,
Empower
left.
shareholders. That's what you have to do. It's their money that is being robbed by those who are taking excessively high wages. And if you give the shareholders the power, then I think you'll find this is naturally corrected in the interest of the shareholders.
What about a maximum
because presumably in BP,
sector?
the shareholders actually don't have the power in the articles of the company
well, actually,
to decide
the shareholders
these things.
can set the remuneration every other year, but this was the year in between, so they didn't have power this year.
Very briefly, Kate.
Can I just say, Paddy, I agree with you, I think, for the first time on that. Very, very,
Thank you very much.
But also, I do think the public sector has a role to play too, because I'm fed up with local authorities paying their chief executives and hospitals paying their chief executives huge amounts of money. And they make the very same argument that you did, Tim, that you don't attract the best person. Well, I remember public service when it was public service, and the idea that we should have to pay more and more to get people to run our local authorities and to run our hospitals, I think is wrong.
OK. Time's up. I'm sorry. So join us next week. We're going to be in Hull. Andy Burnham for Labour, Alex Salmon for the SNP, among the panellists, it seems. Week after that, we're going to be in Manchester. Now, there are the addresses on the screen to go to. You can go to the website or call 0330 123 99 88. If you're listening on the radio, as you know, this glory continues with Question Time Extra Time. It doesn't on the telly. My thanks to our panel and to all of you who came to take part in this programme in Exeter. Until next Thursday from Question Time. Good night.
Well, as the Queen celebrates her 90th birthday today, Catherine Jenkins looks at the monarchy this week. Follows next here on BBC One.
Make the most of the BBC News app.